So hello everyone and welcome to this week's YouTube tutorial. I am Michael Ingledew. I'm all about making you successful with your integrated product support strategies, whether that's standards, specifications, or software or skills identification. We are here to support you on your journey. Now, one of the things that we get asked a lot here on our channel is which tools do we use, how do we use them, and why do we use them? So this week, I'm going to answer a very specific question that came into us here at TDW around the production of business rules. And, you know, I'm not going to go into the detail here today around, you know, the role and function of business rules and how they interact and how the BrDoc talks to the Brex module and how the BRDPs are used and all those kind of things. If that is all new to you, then please go to our website, check out some of our tutorials, or there's some more stuff here on our YouTube channel where you can go and check out what that is. So because I'm trying to keep this to a short tutorial, my assumption is if I'm mentioning some stuff here, you know what it is. If you don't know what it is, then please do go check out some of our other resources that are available to you. So, but what we do here at TDW is we use, as best as we can, affordable off-the-shelf tools that we can easily adopt and manipulate and develop to create some starter kits, some starter getting going kind of templates. And that's the thing I'm going to talk about today, answering your question around business rules. So if you have done any of my training or any of my consulting, this is something that you are familiar with. You have seen the toolkit I'm about to show you. You know, in the main, if we're going into a project manager's training course or something, I give you a copy of this toolkit so you can have a play with it and we can work through it together. But I'm going to show you how I use a tool called MindManager. And again, if you've done any of my training, any of my consulting or anything, any meetings I've been in, MindManager is generally the first tool that I will open. So let's just go through what's open here. Don't worry so much about the map here at the moment. I know that'll probably be a little bit hard to read, but at the top here, you can see that we have developed a TDW toolkit, and this TDW toolkit is all about those that are having to do those project management functions that not the majority of the heavy hitting industry strength CSDBs are coming at this from you've already defined your business rules, you've already defined your DMRL, you've already decided which SNS structures and information codes and all these things you are going to work. So this toolkit that we have developed here is to give our customers the opportunity to go and make all of those upfront decisions, develop all of those upfront requirements, export to things like XML or to Excel, and then you can take those to your CSDB vendor and say, here's all our getting started stuff. Can you please import that into the CSDB? We already work with a number of vendors where they are taking what we export from our DMRL, from our SNS, and they are ingressing that into the CSDB. So therefore, we can use a tool like MindManager to work in a way that's amenable to us and does some of the heavy S1000D lifting for us. And then we can actually turn it into something that's useful for our CSDB vendors to plug into and use. So at the top here, you can see we have a ribbon that we've developed. You have a good idea of kind of the tools that we've got. We actually have another extension on here that I've removed for the purposes of today's presentation. But you'll get a sense of what the kind of stuff that we do. So we have some tools here: DMRL, BrDoc, SNS, etc. Today we're going to focus specifically on the BrDoc, and you can see here that we have the ability to create new. I'm just going to hit new so you can see that it actually does work, and because I'm working on a very small screen, it's very hard for you to see. But what happens is the BrDoc is populated, or the BrDoc map is populated from all of those business rules decisions that are made, or we should be making, inside S1000D. And what we've done is we've taken a lot of what the BrDoc allows us to do, and we've turned it into a map, so therefore we can set things like what are our BRDP numbering conventions we're going to use for the project. Can we use MindManager smart rules to visually show people if there's a Brex module required, or if there is a a Brex rule required, what's the priority and severity, and those kind of things. But also, can we set our own project configurations in here as well? So how have we done that? Well, I'm going to switch to a map here that I've already saved, and here you can see that we have a map that is essentially what we are calling the BrDoc map. And there's a lot of different things going on here. So if you're not familiar with MindManager, let me tell you how this is working. So we have the project at its highest level, and we've built in some tooltips. So those tooltips will populate some quick guidance to the user to actually go and have a look at the S1000D specification, or the area of the S1000D specification where they should be looking, and also giving you the idea of the decision or the rule that you should be taking. But we have, if you're familiar with structured authoring, you'll be familiar with the attributes that we can set on specific elements. What we've done here is provide the ability to add a lot of information at different areas of the map. So here you can see that we can use when I come on to the BRDP numbering, I can show you that we can actually change how all of this works. I'm going to close that one out of the way, so maximize the screen real estate here. So you can see that we've included a whole load of information. One is mainly around codification, and the other is around how can we actually write some information into the actual BrDoc when we actually go to export it as well. And what we can do is we can set information at the highest level here. So at the moment, if I move down here, you can see that in category 1, we have a whole bunch of BRDPs that we need to be making for our project. Now, what we've done here is I've just trimmed this down for the purposes of this presentation on how we work with the BrDoc. And here you can see that we have used a setting of the model identification code to uniquely identify our BRDP numbering. What we can do if we wanted to, we can actually change that. Let's change it to RPC for the purposes of today. And now when we go to export this, I'll show you it very quickly. If I close this attribute panel and I go BrDoc export to Excel, I'm not going to open the Excel file just yet. I'm just going to let it go and do its thing. What we've done is, as it's working through, what it's doing as I'm doing this is it's pushing all of the inheritance from the high level down into the actual BRDPs themselves. So you can see now that what we've done is we have uniquely identified our business rules decision points here based on what we've set at the project level in our attributes. Lots of little functions like this that are using some of the built-in functions of MindManager. We have developed some code in the background, and so what we can do is have all of our relevant S1000D categories, but what we've also done is included the ability for us to actually include our own categories, because we have found that, you know, while S1000D very much focuses on S1000D and the requirements around S1000D and what the kind of decisions you need to make, projects have to make other decisions too. A common one that we see are rules and decisions around the adoption of software. Yes, I know S1000D is software neutral, but we do see projects that want to define how tools are going to be used, when they're going to be used, and specifically around certain export requirements and, you know, things like processing instructions and that kind of stuff. So we can include project specific business rules decisions here. So as we work down the map, we can, you can see that we have the tooltip as we work down the categories, but we also have here attributes at the category level as well. So we can set, again, this is MindManager capability. So we've set an attribute here that is for this particular category 1. And if we set here the priority of this category, so in S1000D, for the BrDoc, we have this concept of priority. It means that any of the BRDPs themselves, the business rules decision points themselves, will inherit that highest priority or lowest priority that might be set at the category level. So we can force that through down into our individual BRDPs. Now let's look here at a little bit at some of the BRDPs that we are using on this particular project. So again, I've just thrown in some here and deleted some to keep it a little bit easier for us to follow along what's going on. So as before, we have a tooltip piece of information that allows us to either document. So if I expand this a little bit, you can see we can start documenting some of the decisions that we want to make, because MindManager has built in a collaboration tool as well. We can actually gather comments and share maps with people and gather their input into some of the decisions that we need to make. So we have the ability here. So if I open up the attributes for a specific BRDP, you can see that we have our unique identifier. And what we've done is we've included some of MindManager's smart rules, and what we're doing here is we're saying, based on any or some of these attribute settings in here, we could say this business rule is used, yes, so we get a little checkbox, but we can also use the Brex flag, and so that now we get a quick visual representation of whether a Brex rule is required for this particular BRDP or this particular decision that we have made. Now, because we are working with our customers on putting this in a way that they want to use and they need to use the BrDoc schema, what we've done is listen to some of the challenges they have. And of course, what we want to do is, if we are going to have a unique BRDP number for our project, which makes sense because we don't want to confuse it with other projects and we don't want to mix up those decisions, we still, for future proofness, we need to be able to maintain a link to the original S1000D BRDP, the default DRP numbering scheme. So we don't allow the change of the number remains constant. The things that we can change here are the prefix and the actual code in the middle that can uniquely identify our project. And we also allow the project to set the location where that decision was actually made. So we include the default S1000D path, and then we can go in and make those decisions. Say, yes, we used that path, or we used a different path to make this decision. And what that means is that we've got that intrinsic link from the original BRDP to the project BRDP back to the S1000D specification. Why is that important? Because our projects are living for 25, 30, 40 years. Some platforms have just been extended and they've been in service since the 70s. So we can have a link between the version and issue of S1000D we're using, and we can also then marry and map that to our project specific rules that we want to use and we are going to be leveraging on our particular project. So, but therefore now we have this interactive map and we have this methodology of working. What we've also done is, if I come down to my category 11 here, on the right hand side we've included some map parts. And so if our project decides, for example, I'm just going to making this up, as I'm going to say I want to have a new category, I can go in and I can change all of these. So we can now go, let's just say that I want to follow along and say that these are now software specific. And I can now quickly go throw in a whole bunch of BRDPs. And yes, what it's doing is, because these are templates, essentially, these are templates within a template. So what we've done is we've just put some boilerplate type template map parts that you can just quickly put into your map. And then now you can go and set whether you want to include a Brex a Brex rule, or whether you want to have a severity against it, or whether you want to have priority against it too. So now we can quickly start building this, and we can open up our attributes and set our particular rule. So if I say here, for example, that we are actually, for this one, we don't need a Brex rule, you can see that the flag disappears. So why is that important and why is that useful? Because when we go to export, we can filter this map based on any of these attributes. And so therefore we could create a Brex rule only map and then export that to Excel and give that to our software developers, to our people who know how to work with the Brex module, or to our software vendor and say, go create us a Brex module based on this, and we list all of those things. So, which leads me on nicely to how do we, let me just delete this one so we get that out of the way. How can we actually now turn this into something that are those that are contributing to the actual production of the business rules, or how can we actually give this to somebody that actually knows how to work with our S1000D Brex modules and those kind of things. So what we have is the ability, we do have some right click sensitive context menus as well, but here we can go to export out to Excel, and what's happening is all of that stuff that we set at the high level is now being pushed down through all of the BrDoc attribute settings. So all of the bits that are, you know, if we're changing the prefix, if we're changing the project number, and you know, we're maintaining all of those links, is being pushed down and through into our Excel spreadsheet. And what we have now, as I've done this multiple times while I was prepping, is I've just opened the latest one here. You can see that we create an Excel spreadsheet that is now useful and usable. So we've exported here from all of our high-level map parts that are inside the map. So all of those attributes that we were able to set. All of the category definitions, if we're using them, and including if we do decide to put in some of our own project-specific categories. And because S1000D says, you know, we should go through all of these decisions, there's lots of decisions that won't be appropriate to our project and we won't be using, but we should still, for good and best practice, document that we're not using them, if that makes sense. So here we separate out all of the BRDPs that are not being used on the S1000D project that we are adopting. So, and if I flip over into the actual categories themselves, you can see that what we can do here is we create a spreadsheet that is now something that we can work with and we can use. You can see that I've been playing here. We export the severity and the Brex rules themselves, and you know, if the rule is used. So here what we've done is we've removed all of the clutter. So if a category rule is not being used, it's taken away from that element or area of the spreadsheet, so it's not actually going to confuse anybody that it might be actually contributing to how we're going to work with this spreadsheet. And you can see what we do as well is here we can maintain that link between the actual project BRDP ID and the S1000D default and link to that as well. So you can see that, you know, there's still some areas of the map that we need to populate. So I'm showing you that from a quick visual area, we can see areas of the map which are still empty and we need to go and fill those up. So it's a good visual prompt for us in terms of how we should be working with our BrDoc. Now, of course, what about going out to something like XML? Let me go back to my original map here. So one of the things that obviously we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get out to XML. Why is that important? Because the BrDoc has a schema and therefore it can be managed in a CSDB, and we can share it with partners and suppliers. We can give them the XML file. we want to be able to do that as well. And we can do that using MindManager. So I can go here and go export out to XML, and it's going off and doing all of those things that the Excel spreadsheet did. So it's actually going to validate, and it's actually going to pull all of the content down through the hierarchy, down through the structure. And for this particular map that I've just opened, if I load it back up, what we've done is we've included some duplicates. And what we're saying here is that, look, you guys are including some duplicate codes here. You need to go and check those out and figure out which one's a duplicate, because it's not actually valid. And so we can give some prompts to our user. Then this is actually XML Spy that we've got here, but we can load this into a WYSIWYG editor, and we can now export to an XML file, which means now you can bring it into your favorite editor of choice. And what we do is we export it to a get you started type XML file, which now it categorizes everything. So it puts everything in category 1 together, puts everything in category all the way through to 11 for our project together. And it also puts a category at the back end of the XML file that says not used on this project. So now we have the ability to take that XML file and we can edit it in our favorite editor or our tool of choice, whichever way. So whichever vendor you're using, you can now go off and do those changes for you and for your project. So that's one of the tools that we use here at TDW. We've developed some capability around MindManager. If you want to learn more about that toolkit that we've developed, get in touch with us. More than happy to share. Download a license of MindManager and have a play with some of these smart rules and how you can set attributes at map level and those kind of things. You know, some of what we've done is actually we've developed MindManager beyond what's available off the shelf. But a lot of what's in there is actually what's available on the shelf. So you get it, you know, with MindManager. So it's just that we've taken S1000D processes and we've aligned them to how we can want to work with our customers and how our customers want to work. So all I can say is go and download it, go and have a play with it. If you want more information about the TDW Toolkit, get in touch. More than happy to share with you. Hope you found that useful. We're going to do more about what we've developed here on the toolkit. So stay tuned, like, share, subscribe. We're going to start looking at how we can do cost calculations for our S1000D project, resource planning for our S1000D project, all those kind of things, all that upfront stuff that we need to do that you can then go and take into your favorite CSDB and editing tools of choice. So I'm Michael Ingledew. I'm all about making you successful with your integrated product support strategies, whether that's software, whether it's standards, whether it's specifications, or whether it's skills. Until next week, do like, share, subscribe. Let me know whether you found this kind of tutorial useful, and I'll answer another one, I think, probably next week. See you guys.